Who's taking lead today? All right.
What did I say? Anyways. Hello and welcome to the Volunteer Firefighter podcast. My name is Scott. I'm literally surrounded by three other guys. I got Ash.
Hey there.
And Todd.
Hello.
And Rob.
Hi. So before we go any further,
What?
I've been waiting for this moment. So my wife called you out on something.
What?
So Todd and I were always like, oh, we're joined with two members of my firefighting family.
Yeah.
My family. Scott's like, yeah, I got these idiots. I see where we rank.
Yeah. Yeah, the family thing, I don't know. It's all right. Just kidding. Anyways, what are we talking about? We are talking about an NBI up in our area the other day, one of our calls. It actually turned out to be pretty much nothing. Well, it was definitely an NBI.
Yeah.
I guess maybe you should tell the story, Ash, since you actually called it in.
Yeah, so I was sitting at home and I was just about to head uptown. So I'm grabbing my keys and about to walk out the door. And my phone rings and it's Todd. And he's like, hey, buddy, what's going on? And I could hear in the background, wee, wee. I'm like, what's up? He's like, are you guys going to this call? I'm like, nope, that's on. I haven't heard anything. Nope. He's like, oh, shit. Well, there's a call, single vehicle, NBI, in your area, but like on the border, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, man, we haven't heard anything. He's like, okay, stand by. So you make a call to your dispatch, right?
Yeah, we started getting updates on our CAD that fire department was not responding. Single vehicle, but multiple patients, unknown injuries, high velocity. And then they actually radioed us and saying, no, this is out of fire's area, so they're not responding, which is kind of odd because usually we just get the update on the CAD.
Right.
So I was like, well, wait a minute, there's no way. Like this is in the area, and on the information we have at hand, it sounded like could absolutely be something where we're going to need more people.
Yeah.
Because the first ambulance that was probably going to be arriving was coming from town, and it's quite a ways up the hill, up this Forest, or not really Forest Road, it's a gravel road.
Yeah.
And we were coming from the other valley, which I think dispatch we were sent to come in as second car.
Right.
But in their theory, we were going to be traveling all the way around down the Highway 3, back to Highway 97.
So you guys went off the top.
And again, no, we're taking the bumpy road. We're in Caribbeans.
Right, okay. I didn't know.
So I quickly said to my partner, I was like, how good are you driving fast on shitty forestry roads? He's like, pretty good. I'm like, all right, over the top. And yeah, so we hit the bush road going up over the top. And then, of course, we lost cell service immediately. Right. So I was glad that I was able to make that phone call to you, Ash, quickly to see if we could get you guys going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at that point, I'm already in my pickup. I started driving it down. I phoned dispatch and basically asked if they have gotten a request yet. And at that point, they're like, no, there's only two of us here. We haven't heard anything. And I'm like, okay, well, can you build us a call? So I give as much of the information that I got from Todd, and the call comes in, and I quickly send out a text to the officer group, incoming call, NBI, blah, blah, blah. By that time, I'm pulling up to the hall here, and I just open up the door. I'm starting to put on my gear, and I see Scott pulling. I'm like, oh, man, he must have also been driving.
I do not know anything about this.
No.
I was stopping to get something for 7 hours, and I'm like,
yeah,
that's the rescue truck door opening.
Yeah.
And then, I'm like, oh, sweet.
So, yeah, it was perfect. Yeah, so we assembled a crew pretty quick. Rob answered the radio. He's on duty this week as the duty officer, and you were basically responding immediately.
Yeah.
You were rolling. We had 4 people come pretty quick, and then there was a bit of a lull. So I radioed you and said, "Hey, do you want us to leave with 4, and then maybe fill up the bush truck?" So again, where this is a pretty not remote, like it's very well kept, but it's a mountain pass dirt road.
It's definitely remote.
Yeah. So like we're going first gear, like you might be code 3 lights and sirens, but you're like you can almost walk as fast.
We had turned off the code save once.
Yeah.
A couple times going up because we're like,
because it's just
No reason.
so slow.
Even our rig barely made it up the first hill.
Yeah.
It was getting a little rough. Yeah.
But we do provide road rescue because it is a very frequented access road. Yeah, so we ended up doing that, and the entire chat on the truck is like, let's make good time so the bush truck doesn't pass us. Because that might have happened on a recent call.
Earlier this week, or last week.
That's right.
Yeah, so I guess once we arrived, it actually was a pretty good accident, and it was actually quite amazing.
Yeah.
Because it was pickup truck wrapped around a tree. By the time we got Rob had got there, gave us an update and said patient self-extricated, and they were with you guys.
But you guys, you arrived literally 2 minutes after I arrived.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got there and Todd was there and had a face-to-face with him, and that's when I updated you guys. And
So we arrived and started doing just checking battery and make sure there's no fire, and
Scene safety stuff,
I'm
right?
kind of poking my head inside and looking around, and one of the other guys is disconnecting the battery, and and then suddenly I'm like, wait a minute, there's no airbag deployment here. So I was like, pulled my head out of there, just screwed around the battery, and then I called Rob and they let Todd and everybody else know that there's no airbag deployment because I don't know what the injuries were.
Yeah, and Rob did that. He came, knocked on the door, and stuck his head in and told us that as well, because we didn't quite get all that info, because the one serious patient, he went with the other crew, and then we had kind of the two walking minor wounded people. So
yeah, I had talked to both crews, let them know. But
that was the first time I've seen an accident that severe without an airbag component.
pretty much head on with the tree.
Head on the tree. The tree was like wrapped around.
That tree was embedded into the engine bay. Like it was that was a pretty high rate of speed impact. And crazy that the injuries were, I don't want to call it minor, but like we were anticipating with the info, and then even seeing the vehicle, I'm surprised that the truck was in good enough shape where they could open the doors and walk out, and then B, that the two of them were walking.
that's right.
Right?
There was a couple of points where they went off the road. It looked like if any momentum either way, they could have just barrel rolled.
Sure.
And it would have been
Absolutely.
a whole lot worse.
Yeah, they were pretty lucky at the one section where they went off, because it was kind of semi-flat coming around the corner. But like you said, Rob, like if they deviated slightly to either side with some of the rocks and stuff, it would have been a very simple flip over, right?
So I guess we didn't have to do much on this call, but let's take it to other calls we've been on, and let's talk about Todd. You obviously go to a lot of accidents. You go to accidents all over the region. You don't just go to, because, like you said, you're on the other side of the valley.
We were, yeah.
So you obviously go to a lot of different calls. You see a lot of different styles of auto extrication, of stabilization, of whatever. What are the minimum do's and don'ts in your eyes as a paramedic, or you're a firefighter too? So.
Yeah, I think anybody who's kind of dual trained on which other side you're responding on, it's kind of nice because you have the other job you can kind of lean on for the information as well. But like anytime you have people in the vehicle still, specifically, like we want to make sure the vehicle's safe, because like as we roll up, as a paramedic, I want the fire department's job is to make it safe for us and the patients as well, right? And as a medic, it's hard because like if fire department's not there, we have no means to do any of that stuff. Like I can't be cutting battery cables and disconnecting things and
no.
And that. And
so what do you really do if you arrive there first?
Patient contact. Be as safe as we can. If we need to somehow access the vehicle to get to the patient. Normally, if the vehicles are stabilized, we can enter the cabin if need be to provide advanced care if necessary. Right. But then there's those scenarios where it's either rolled over or it's on its side where it's still unstable, where we're probably not going to be entering.
Right.
So then it's just as best you can outside.
So is it a common thing that you guys get there before fire?
Not really.
I was wondering that, because obviously you guys are at the station full time, fully staffed now. I mean, you guys aren't coming from pager.
It depends. I don't know, man. It's a tough one to say. 50-50 maybe. Like sometimes we'll arrive pretty quick, but even as we're just doing the quick little triage and patient assessment, by the time we're updating, usually the fire of whichever community is rolling up pretty fast.
Right.
Well, you just said something about stabilization. I mean, that's important to have us rolling to provide that stabilization for EHS, because if you can't go in and make contact with a patient, best to, whatever that stabilization is, it could be a couple of wedges if it's rolled over on the hood to keep it from rocking back and forth. Just some simple stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I kind of think that comes back to that bare minimum of like what you should be looking for, and it goes back to that course that we just took, right? I mean, that's going back a while now, but
It's like a year ago.
yeah, right. Just the other day, but yeah, like that was the big thing: is get out and make it safe to assess,
Yeah.
right? So it's not safe to work, but safe to assess.
Mhm.
So a couple of step chalks or whatever goes a long way in just making sure nothing else is going to happen. If it's up on its side, if it's on its roof, even if it's on its wheels, I mean, when are we ever dead level? Like, let's make that thing so it's not going to go. Like on that call up there, like we didn't know what we had yet, and like I was already given, like we have our tool belt. I was giving that to the back. I think I gave it to Scott.
Yeah.
I had like Scott and one of our other officers were in the back. So like, I'm not going to be like, all right, guys, this is what I want out of you. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory on a lot of these calls, especially when we don't have the information yet. Like, there's no sense making a plan because it's going to change as soon as we know it. But bare minimum, I knew, hey, let's make the scene safe. Let's make the vehicle safe. So we got the tools to the back, and then we'll figure it out from that point forward. But like, those are like those bare minimum things. Let's make sure the vehicle's safe. Let's make sure the scene is safe. And then start to expand from that point, right? But you can't even go in. You can't even enter the scene until you know everything's safe.
Yeah, and that comes down to like many different styles and scenarios, right? Like you said, even if it's just a basic vehicle on its all four wheels still, is it in gear? Is the engine running? Is it a vehicle with a fob? Is the key in the ignition? If it's a fob and we power it down, remove the fob from that zone, right? So nothing can be repowered. Like all these little things that a lot of people don't think about, that's super key to that primary stabilization and scene safety things, right? Then you talk about the electric vehicles. You don't even know they're on half the time. And sometimes we get a little bit hyper-focused on the patient and other scene stuff where it's like, oh shit, this electric vehicle is still energized and in gear, right? Like all these little things. So simple chalks. And it comes down to, in the fire world, our 316 survey, and then your primary stabilization. Then you get into the secondary stuff when you start talking about struts and other things. If it's on the roof and it could potentially crush into the cabin, right? So that's into your secondary now. So you need that primary done first, and then get into that to make it really safe. So.
Yeah, then usually what I do is I take the keys out of the vehicle if it has keys, and then put it on the roof. So I know it's if it's on its roof or if it's on its wheels. I mean, just so we know. Even the other day we had a PEDS truck.
Yep.
So an older fella ran over another older fella, I guess. So we get there and it's just already on scene. They were just putting the patient in the ambulance when we arrived. But the guy that ran the guy over, he's kind of like shaken up, the older guy, and I'm like, wasn't really sure if he was like
flight risk,
accidentally drive away or gonna actually drive away. He wasn't like saying I'm getting out of here, but you just never know with these people. So I'm like, hey, so I poke my head. I'm like, hey, just to make everything safe, because like if it's this front light was kind of hanging off, I said, just make everything safe here. Can you just hand me your keys? So I put them on the roof. Like, yeah, perfect. Yeah, you can sit in here all you want and find your insurance papers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to just be like, I'm out of here, and drive away, or B, just forget where he was or whatever, and decide to back up and run one of us over while we're standing by that. Where we were looking at what to do with the blood and stuff, like we're going to rinse it down or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
which is great, because you then gave that info to me as the IC, and I went over to one of the RCP officers and said, hey, so the driver's over there. We just grabbed the keys. They're up on the roof. They're grabbing all their information. And then again on that one, I'm like, you have the witness that was following behind, saw everything happen. They're in their vehicle, directed behind. Everything's great. But I think that's a super easy thing, even when there's no major damage, just to remove those keys and make that safe, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes
shock is a crazy thing.
Sometimes we forget this vehicle was in motion when it came to a stop. It hasn't been put in park.
Yeah, a lot of times
it could roll off. Like sometimes we forget that, and that's where chalking the wheels even.
Well, I remember when I got rear-ended once in the middle of Surrey, which is like a major city, so and down Lower Mainland. So I got rear-ended. So I'm like, a week after I got my new car, get rear-ended. I'm like, yes. And then I look back behind me and I get out and like we're in a major intersection and the person hit me, her airbag went off. So she's panicking and I don't know if she tried to put it in park, but she put it in like neutral. So now her vehicle's now rolling because we're on a little bit of a slope. It's now rolling back into the intersection. Cars are like driving by.
Yeah.
So I like run down and I dive into the, I jam it in a park for her because
Right.
we're about to roll in an intersection and cause a major accident.
Yeah.
Ah.
Mhm.
So,
Then you came back to the vehicle and it's 3 other people you didn't know. Wait a minute.
yeah, actually, that's when I first, so the fire shows up and they're like, you hurt? I'm like, nope. They're like, they fill out some little form. They're like, here you go. Like, if you're not hurt, nothing's drivable, get out of here. I'm like, okay. They're like, because we don't want you around and we don't want her around and we want everybody to leave and
Yeah.
we don't want to tie this intersection any longer. We don't want any weird, like, people showing up for insurance claims and don't want any fights. I'm like, okay. So they just gave me like some kind of form they had and
Nice, yeah.
yeah, all the information on it.
Off you went.
Yeah.
That's funny. Something that people don't think about in today's day and age is there's less and less. We had just a small accident south of town many years ago, and I go up and check on one of the vehicles, and it's a manual. So there was nobody in it at the time, but the whole front end was smashed, like it was like smashed in. So instead of just doing the e-brake, I reach in and find neutral. If you got wires that are damaged or whatever, if something arcs out, that starter can start, and if it's in gear, it can actually start to creep itself forward.
Right.
So I've definitely kept that with me for years. Like, it's just something that you generally wouldn't think about being a manual versus auto, as there's less and less of them.
Yeah.
But throw that thing in neutral, because if things do happen, I mean, all of the electrical is all fucked. So
Well, there's some amazing videos on YouTube of a little bit of a car fire, and that happens. It kicks
Well,
the starter
what
now.
was it like?
mobile,
Start-
yeah,
The motorbike,
Yeah.
yeah.
The Ghost Rider motorbike?
Yes.
Trying to run in circles.
Yeah. So yeah, those things do happen. I think that comes back to, like you said, Ash, like that. There's the kind of the minimum dues that you need to be doing, and then there's some of the must do's. And I feel like that type of stuff falls into the categories as the must do.
Sure.
Making the scene safe, whether it's that minimal cribbing, the stabilization, or just wheel shocks, whatever it may be, depending on the patient's condition and where they are.
Yeah.
And then of course fire suppression, if you have a extinguisher out as well, or if you're going to be stretching the line, whatever, as long as there's something out. But just not focusing in on certain patients, because sometimes that happens. Like, we'll roll up and
yeah,
it'll
get
be like
sucked in.
one really bad one, and then somebody else will sit in the vehicle, and everybody focuses in on that one. And it's like, well, the vehicle's maybe not safe yet, and they're still sitting in there. So maybe we need to remove them first.
Yeah.
So you got to look at it, the time frame, as far as like, okay, like, when's EHS coming? Like, if I'm responding as fire, and okay, like, can I make this safe or not? Or do we just need to do a quick little drag, get them out if they're easily accessible to make it safe, if I can't make that vehicle safe?
Right.
So there's lots of ways to look at it, but there's definitely some of the must-dos we need to all be looking for and doing.
Sure.
I think something that comes down to training too. You have to train, like we train, like we always say, we train this decentralized command. So our guys, when we go to an accident, it's like everybody starts working. No one's waiting. No one's waiting to be told what to do. Everyone just starts Ash just says, "Hey, we need to stabilize." So
Yeah, exactly.
we just say, grab some blocks, grab some cribs, whatever. Grab some struts. Let's go to work, depending on what we need.
Yeah.
So one team starts stabilizing, but no one needs to be like, "Hey, okay, Todd, now it's time for you to go down here and stabilize." No, it's like those guys start stabilizing. Yeah. And it's like we don't even really talk to each other. We just do it. Like, we just start going. And then usually eventually one of the captains say, "Hey, this is what's happening." And I see he's like, "Perfect." So it's not like that. I think there's an old school method of like, "Hey, everybody just wait here until I tell you what to do." I think we've gotten away from that in the fire service in general. I think they've just from doing more IC courses, not just in this job, but my other job, we're definitely they're starting to embrace more of that. I don't want to say it's Jocko. It's more like that military mentality of everybody's smart enough to take on the role. I think the military mentality used to be, people used to think you wait until you're given your assignment. And that was like World War I military mentality.
Right.
And I think the fire service was stuck in that World War I military mentality. It was like, you wait to be told to go over that wall and don't do anything else until I tell you to. Whereas, as they start getting World War II, they're like, oh wait, these units can go do things without us having to tell them everything. And then, more and more. I don't think the fire service caught up for a while. I think there is still like everything's like ranked like brigades and battalions and stuff. That's all military.
Sure.
It's like all that stuff is military stuff. So then they're all stuck back in the past. Finally, I think we're catching up to like truly what the military is now, which is think for yourself a little bit. Well, actually a lot. Think for yourself a lot, and just always make sure you're not super far off board, but you're making sure you're.
And that's where
what's going on.
And that's where it comes down to is like when we're coming up in the truck. Like if the 4 of us are in the truck, and if I'm in charge, I'm going to say, okay, you two, I want you guys to get out there and stabilize, make that safe. Scott, you're going to go do this. I'm going to do whatever.
Yeah.
Or if duty officer already there, IC's already there. Okay, you guys have your roles. I'm going to go quick little face-to-face, get some updated information that we may not have yet, and then we'll relay it back. And that's exactly what you're saying. Like, so everybody's trained up well enough to do all the tasks, and then you have your role, then you regroup and change your mission. Right?
I always find accidents and structure fires, and they're pretty easy to manage actually, because you're really IC. You just kind of take a big step back, like you're basically as far away as you can.
Yeah.
While still seeing the scene, and then you can see things that are odd. Like why is that guy standing there? What's he doing?
Yeah.
What's going on over there? So those things you pick up on, and then you just correct one guy. Like, hey, we don't need that done yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Get away from that. Or hey, what are you? Don't play with the power line. Like things like that. I don't want to leave anywhere fast, but but just right away by us being detached and taking a step back. Like in the last few accidents we've done on the highway, they've all been off the highway, but the ICs stood on the highway and just looked down the scene. It's great. You just stand there.
Yeah, it works out perfect.
Yeah, and like you said, like having those. The small groups with the task, you've got the commander's intent already, and away you go, and you're off and rolling. And then as things evolve, as the scene evolves, you guys start getting freed up because they've done that task, and you just naturally mold into that next task that's needed, right? But yeah, those are some of the musts, and being able to slow it down and figure out those key things we need to do right away is super key, in my opinion, rolling up as a medic with none of those things in my toolbox to do. Like that's where I'm really relying on the fire to do all that stuff. So we got to work as a team, got to communicate, and sometimes medics, we need to step back and wait until that stuff is done before we can get in. So there's always a bit of a rush, it seems like, especially if somebody's really fucked up. They really want to oh, hey, come in here, and then you get totally hyper focused and narrowed in on this one guy, and it's like, oh shit, airbags haven't gone off, and the lights are still on, and they don't even have cribbing out yet. And, oh shit! Right? Okay, hang on. I need to step back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we want to talk about tonight was I was actually did a thing for my work where I was the IC a couple weeks ago. Yeah, weeks ago. And in my debrief, there was the operational debrief, and then right below that it talks about CISM. I'm like, well, nothing happened. So I get the operational side, I had to debrief my guys, of course, and then I get to the CISM part. I'm like, I just put nothing happened. And then the person that was reviewing it, they're like, well, you got to do the CISM debrief. I'm like, no, nothing happened. Well, if you ask everybody if they need a CISM, I'm like, no, nothing happened. Like it wasn't like a crazy operation. Like it was. I mean, the operation was interesting, but it was like nothing that I would deem stressful really happened. And I like all the guys were like, no one was stressed out. It was just it took a lot of planning. It wasn't like an event, like a fire event. There was a lot of pre-plan to it, and we just did it. So yeah, I don't know. Thoughts on operational versus.
Yeah, I think the big thing, like you can't confuse the two, right? Like you said, like yours was a very pre-planned event.
Yeah. So
it's always good to have an operational debrief to see how it went as well. But a lot of our calls that we get sent out as fire departments was nothing pre-planned. Like, it kind of is. We know how to respond to these things. But
the only pre-planning you really have is through training.
Exactly.
Like, that's the only pre-planning you have.
Yeah, exactly. But like when it comes down to the operational debrief, you definitely want to have everybody who is hands-on involved in the call. You can expand out a little bit to other people who were listening to the comms or other tasks and stuff. Like as long as we're not mixing up like okay, hey, this guy was really messed up. He's missing half his body or whatever. Like, that's a SISM debrief with a very small group of guys who had that intimate hands-on or visual connection with him. Everybody else that was doing tasks that was still super pertinent to that scene, they don't need to be involved in that SISM because they weren't by the patient.
Right.
But everybody needs to be part of that operational debrief.
Yeah.
So there's the two, like operations. Everybody,
including people that were even there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Like, because you can still have guys in the hall or on the other truck, or the guy doing traffic. Like, he's listening to the comms, he's seeing what's going on, and hearing guys and watching them running around, and especially if you're an officer and whatnot, like that. As command staff, we need to be involved in that. So if there's any questions arise, we're all kind of privy to where people's levels are at as far as how they did it. And it's also important in that operational debrief to not criticize. You know, don't criticize somebody. Like, say, hey, Rob, you know, what was your role in that call? Oh, I thought I was I was in the back seat and I was tasked with cribbing and this and that. Okay, great. Was there name one thing you could have done better and two things that you felt really did well? Right. So you're the one saying, hey,
like there's 2 stars and a wish there.
Right. Absolutely. But that's how you do an operational debrief.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be like, well, Rob, you know, yeah, you really fucked up on that. You didn't do that at all. Well, you should have done this and this and this.
Right.
No, it's none of this. You should.
Rob would never have a car roll away.
No, I'd never have a
It's not an incident.
Maybe to the fire duck.
Maybe
But
We will never let that go.
operational debrief.
That's why I said we.
Oh, we. I thought you meant we as in a group will never let it go on him. I'm like, you
No.
We'll share that story after.
Yeah.
But operational debriefs, it's not a time to criticize. It's time to empower the members and have that self-reflection on debriefing that call personally and be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I should have done this better, or I didn't really hear what I was supposed to do, but I went and did it anyways.
Yeah.
So I know I should have asked for clarification.
Yeah.
Just as an example, right? And then finish it off as, yeah, and I felt I grabbed this hose or I did this, I popped that door really well. Perfect. And then as the officer leading the debrief, hey, I agree. That's great. Thanks, Rob. Anything we want to talk about at table after? Yeah, let's talk about this. Kate, you write it down on the board or something, right? It's just another option of how you do a debrief. But yeah, you go around the table that way. Then everybody kind of builds their own picture of how it went and how we could improve from. And then so Rob's little note of, hey, you know, I should have grabbed this piece of equipment for the cribbing instead of whatever. You know, write it down. So then we talk about it at the end. Say, okay, so we wrote down 4 things on the board here, things that we could have done better, this, and this. So let's practice that next couple of times, right?
Right.
So that's how you build the team.
I like Scott's 2 stars and a wish. We've done that a couple of times in our training scenarios, and especially as officers where you're K2 stars, it shows the guys that we're paying attention to what those guys are doing, or maybe a particular person that are doing something really well, but also that wish coming from us. What is something that I could have done better? Not saying what they could have done better. What is something I could have done better? That way they know that I'm not focusing on just what they're doing, but also what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Positive or negative on the fire ground.
Yeah, you know,
absolutely.
I think that's super, super key. That when you're doing that roundtable debrief or you're going around to everybody, I found it's easy to overlook like the top, right? So when it's us, like, hey, I can still reflect back and see all those things that hey, I think as an overall scene, I think this went well, this went well, sure. But those things like Rob says, hey, like I really wish that, you know, I called for Fortis gas faster, or man, I sure wish we got the second tender rolling because we were kind of running low on water there for a couple moments or whatever, right? Like if you can reflect back on things that you're, you know, realizing that maybe you can do better as well, it shows, I think, the team that like we're all in this together as well, right? Kind of brings that cohesiveness together.
And I think even as incident command, you're focusing, okay, that officer did well at doing this, getting ready. He did really well at getting this ready. You know what, maybe I didn't give him enough support in that decision or something like that.
Right.
You know, that the IC is going to be further back from, like you said, further back from the scene and see what his officers are doing. The officers are going to see what his firefighters are doing. And that's it's good that way. It shows too that the IC is seeing what's going on the fire ground.
Mm-hmm. And it's beneficial to everyone, like you said. Everybody needs to be involved in that. It builds that team cohesiveness and the camaraderie and the trust.
Yeah.
And then everyone's on the same page of, hey, these are the things we could have all done better as a group. We're going to talk about them. We're going to practice them. We've already discussed them, rather than, hey guys, that call went really good. Yeah, good job. All right, see you next week.
Right.
And then you sit at home by yourself. We're like, oh, why the hell did Ash do that? Like, that seemed kind of stupid. Like, it shouldn't be any of that, right? Yeah. So by having that operational debrief with everybody involved, it's great.
And even I don't like necessarily. What happened to you?
I got a hammy. Too much yard work today.
I'm not massaging it. I'm gonna do yard work around here.
Don't mind me. I'm dying. Somebody give me a banana stat. Fuck. And of course, we're videotaping. God damn it.
Oh, this is the best.
So everybody's up on the sound for Todd here. I'd say what I was going to say. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Can I talk? Or are you?
I'm good.
What I was going to say was when we do a debrief, I don't always I don't necessarily go around the whole room if it's if there's 30 guys, I'm not going to be like, and Ash, how did you feel about this? And it's like, I know, and definitely the officers that are there should be saying something.
Yeah.
And then I kind of leave it to the, unless we throw it out there, anyone else have anything to say. Most guys don't have anything to say.
Round two. Oh, that's the worst.
But they might. So we need to pause.
Plus water?
Let's pause for a second.
I'm good.
He's back.
All right.
I got 2 leg hammies going.
Jesus. But we don't force the guys to do the debrief. But I think doing the 2 stars and a wish, maybe when they do go back home, they will they'll think rather than
gives them time to reflect.
They'll hopefully think, oh, what are the 2 things that guys did good, and then what could I have done better? Hopefully, getting away from the I'm sure it's better on the radio or does it fester? So
I was going to say, I think. I think too.
I wish Todd drank more water today.
Yeah, salts.
With your operational debrief too, it's handy to have everybody there, even if they weren't involved. They're sitting at the hall. They can hear firsthand the accounts of what was going on, what was being done, rather than maybe hearing secondhand or making up stories for themselves as well. Gets everybody on the same page.
Yeah. And I really found it helpful when having the pieces of wood and the sidewalk chalk, because we used to do debriefs in the hall, sitting around the table, and everyone's like, I don't understand what happened. And you're trying to explain, and they're like, I don't really know what happened? Where?
It's a fine line, eh? You don't want to recreate the whole thing again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it is important for everybody to kind of get on the same page.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking as you were talking there with that.
How much your legs hurt?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I lost it. Continue.
Okay.
A fine line between, right?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, you're not bringing out photos of the incident and stuff.
That's what.
Sorry. All right.
So it's a fine line with your operational debrief. You don't want to overexpose people who were involved in the incident.
Right.
However, that's more towards the CISM patient care stuff for traumatic events, right? If we're just talking about an operational debrief, like, hey, we did a car fire, bush fire, grass fire, whatever, right? With no patients involved, we can definitely hash that out a little bit more with everybody. But if it's just back to that CISM style, then we don't want to talk in a large group with that, because we don't want people to relive things and things like that.
And I think what we do in our debriefs, anyways, when we do these operational debriefs, especially if there's a fatal or something, it's like in the last few times we've had a fatal, it's like and this is where the patient was, and we kind of brush over it quickly. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you talk to the guys that were there and dealing with it more thoroughly. Yeah. But we kind of just and there was a patient, and unfortunately he passed away, and then we carry on. And so everyone's like, oh, everyone knows that happened. Everyone knows that happened. So.
But that's also important for everybody in that group to know, because as we know, small towns, we all get asked. Yeah. Yes, there's confidentiality. We don't divulge a lot of that stuff. Yeah. However, when somebody you really know is asking something about it, it's very easy to say, yeah, we attended a back wreck. Oh, I heard somebody died. And you need to choose the best response for that. You say, yes, unfortunately somebody passed away, but I can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Done. Period. Moving on, right?
Mhm.
Rather than, oh, really? I didn't hear that. Oh, I was on the other truck. And, like, don't build that picture,
Yeah.
right? Like, control the information.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, if it was one of those bad calls where, maybe there was a fatal, maybe, there was some work being done, something that could leave, I guess, a spot for a schism to happen. Maybe let's chat about that for, like, when those instances happen, like, how do you pull those guys aside?
Mhm.
What do you recommend? Like, how would that chat go? How would that debrief go? So, like, we kind of chatted about the overall scene. So now let's break it down and talk about, hey, so, like, us four were just on this call. We were all on a truck. We dealt with that person that was,
That's a hamstring pull.
yeah, maybe
Double hamstrings.
double hammy pulls. How would something like that roll out?
Yeah, so basically you want one kind of CISM team lead that was not involved in the incident. So they're a completely neutral party that can kind of steer the conversations. And with that one, again, like, you just have to, it's very delicate because dealing with people's emotions and feelings. And part of that, it's important also knowing your group on who's comfortable to talk and share. We're never going to force people to talk and share. But we want to give them a comfortable...
Like back in the day.
Oh, yeah, right? Back in the day.
Everybody has to say something.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even that far long ago, right? Where they say, okay, well, we're absolutely going around this table and each one of you are going to talk. No, we're not doing that.
Right.
It's, we're going to have some crosstalk. If we start talking about operations, it's the team leader with the system to shut that down. But, hey, thanks. Good point there, Rob. But however, we're not going to talk about that. It's more about what you did for the patient and how that made you feel, things like that, right? And it's a bit tricky. That's why the CISM training is multiple days, right? It's very challenging to navigate that stuff. And then leaving everybody on a note that, hey, we're always here to come back and talk. There's certain time frames. If there's a natural time frame it takes for you to actually decompress and process everything. And then also with that, hey, like, we have other avenues for you to reach out to if you don't want to reach back to us. Having the chiefs or deputy chiefs in the loop of, hey, these people were involved, have it documented somewhere that there was a traumatic event, documented, and that can go into FirePro. So then years down the road, if something ever happens, works, you can say, hey, look, Todd was exposed to this many things, and it can be looked at, right? Like, the chiefs and deputy chiefs, they don't even know it was specifically all of us by name. Like, if somebody says, hey, a system has been activated, or the counselor has been activated for Scott, well, then something went wrong, because it should just be, hey, counselor was activated for a member of your department. Right. Like, it shouldn't actually have any names attached to that if it goes to that step. But of course, being in a close family group, Scott, we all kind of know if somebody's
the fire friends just sitting around there.
Yeah.
Fire group. My fire group.
But also that can be very beneficial, right? Like, we've all had a lot of calls we've all gone to together over the years. And, by knowing, hey, if somebody's kind of bothered by it, sometimes it's nice to have that familiar face to debrief to.
Sure.
So that can also be a benefit.
So I think you kind of chatted about it there. So obviously there is a like a CISM team lead, or a counselor, a peer that's going to be leading this. Who else would be good or bad to speak to? Like, is this one of the things that, like, hey, like, I had this rough call, and you know what, I run into Rob, and Rob, wasn't there, and I'm like, man, buddy, like, that guy was fucked. He had double hammies, and I just can't get that picture out of my head. He's flailing around in his chair, and I just wake up at night and all I can see is Todd. And trust me, that's not something I wish for anybody, because I've had that happen too. What's happening out there? Oh, Jesus.
There's a mouse.
Yeah, exactly. Now, like, as a fellow firefighter and friend, is that something recommended? Like, hey, like, we can chat as a group, and or should you really go back to that peer counselor or whatever it is?
I think it goes back to depends on your personal relationship with other people as far as what you're comfortable with sharing.
Right.
Like there's, and we even, like in our department and even in the ambulance world, we talk about, hey, like, okay, yes, I'm a CISM peer for my station, but some people may be totally open to talking to me, and others are like, yeah, I worked with Todd for a long time, but I don't have that relationship with him, so I don't want to bring that up. You know,
Right.
go to somebody else. You know, whereas like I've talked to other people who are not CISM people at all, just trusted peers, and you sit down and you have a chat, right?
Right.
So
Like I know it works
think
for
there's-
me, right?
Yeah,
Like that works for me. That's my
real
thing.
right or wrong.
I'll talk to the wife. I'll talk to you guys or whoever else, right? And obviously, like if I'm at home, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, honey, like it was crazy. This happened and this happened. But like being able to just like, hey, like yeah, it was pretty bad, and you know, I'm unfortunately didn't go the right, you know, not the right way, but it didn't go the positive way. But you know, we still did everything that you know we could. And, yeah, it's just kind of sitting with me there for a bit, and she's like, oh. Yeah, okay. And I find for me, that's really good because if I get quiet later on in the day or a day or so later, then she's aware of
She
it,
might
right?
know why.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, and I was just going to mention as well on that, like it is super important to be able to talk to your significant other or your spouse with these, because there's a lot of opinions out there like, no, you guys, we talk about it here, you can't talk about it anywhere else with anyone else. You can't talk about with your wife or husband. And it's like, no, that's not the case. It's completely opposite, actually.
Yeah.
You need to have that trusting bond and conversation.
Sure.
Because if I start going off the rails, who's going to notice it first?
Sure.
Them.
Yeah.
So again, like you just mentioned, may not get into the details, but gentle, hey, this is what happened. Yeah, you know, I don't want to talk about it right now, and then at least they're aware, right?
The way that you're explaining it is like telling people, no, bottle up your emotions and deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people unfortunately get some mental illnesses is because of all the stuff that they've seen or bottled up and don't know how to deal with it now.
Yeah,
sure.
And you can't leave it as, you know, you can't talk about anybody. You can't talk to any of your spouses or anybody else about this. If there's an issue, you come back to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Fuck that. No.
pretty arms wide open.
No. Yeah.
For one person.
I think to Ash's question about who you should talk to, I mean, you have to know the person that you're asking to, if I can talk to about it, is going to be somebody that can be able to handle what you might be going through, right?
Very good point. Yeah.
You know, you might approach me and I'll be fine to talk to you back about it.
Right.
But you're not going to approach a new person who's been on a department for a couple of weeks and say, hey, can I run this by you? Because now you're just laying loads of stuff on them.
Sure.
When their eyes go big and they go, oh, holy shit. Okay, I'm going to stop talking.
Now they're carrying half of your load. Right?
And I find sometimes the CISM people aren't like, they're not like super like when they get selected, it's not like a huge selection process in some places. It's like literally like, who wants to be, it's like the Krusty the Clown thing in Simpsons. Who wants to be the CISM guy? Yeah, you can be. Me? Yeah, sure. It's like, you know, I remember at my work, we had a use of force incident, and it was pretty minor in our world, but they had sent a CISM person down to talk to this guy that was involved. I'm at my desk and I hear the CISM lady show up and she starts kind of CISMing the officer that was there. And I'm like, I'm kind of listening. I'm at my computer, I'm typing, and I can hear her saying, I heard you had use of force yesterday. And he's like, yep. And he didn't catch on what was going on. He's typing away on the computer. He's like, yeah. And he's kind of like, yeah, it was simple. The guy was being an idiot and blah, blah, blah. And he's kind of talking about it. And she goes, when these incidents happen, you might have trouble sleeping. Like she's totally like, she got like a playbook
Going
right?
through her list, yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of roll my chair to the side. I'm listening, and she's like, you might have issues sleeping. He's like, and he's still not catching on what's
He
going
doesn't
on.
know he's being CISM'd.
He's like looking. He's like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, yeah. And he keeps typing, and I'm like, hey, are you giving him CISM right now? She's like, yeah, I had to come down and give him. I said no. I said that incident yesterday. I'm like, we talked about it. He's fine. I'm like, I just want to, he was a vet from Afghanistan and he's been in multiple gunfights. I'm like, that thing we did yesterday, I'm like, it might have pushed him over the edge, but I don't think it did. And then he realizes, he's like, what? No, he's like, I'm totally fine. But it's just like that whole, like, he didn't even know what's going on. And, sometimes they send people that are just, they think in theory, CISM is a good thing for them to, they want to take it on. But then maybe when they actually get into it, they're like, oh, maybe I'm not really qualified for being teaching.
Well, and that's the one thing. It's funny, like with even with the fire department, like with our system team, like everybody kind of like, hey, who wants to do it? Like you said, oh yeah, we'll do it, do it, and then you get into it.
Kind of looking at people like,
but it may work. Like for us in the ambulance, like we're actually, you apply and then you're vetted by a psychologist as well. They call you for a huge long interview and make sure that your mental health is good and you know how to support it and you can handle it. And then you go to the week-long training, right?
And I think that's finally how like our agencies went. I don't know with the other agencies, but we also went that like when we propose a CISM officer, they call and the psychologist talks to them and for a week.
That's by far a better way, because like you said, Rob, like you start opening up to somebody not thinking that they're going to crack the book, and all of a sudden they open up tenfold, right? Oh, okay, now
you're taking on
you really able to stick handle this, right?
For sure.
So.
And knowing, or even like not knowing the person, you say you've got this group of people, and whoever puts up their hand, and I'm going to be that guy. And in 3 or 4 years, you have a couple new firefighters that come in, and like they don't know us as well as we know each other now. And let's say like our group had 2. We had a Scott and we had a Rob, and knowing both of you guys well, the support or whatever between the 2 of you would be vastly different.
Do you call them family? Because I don't.
Still really burned about that. No, but what's funny though is like I actually value Scott's whatever. Well, no, because like it's very to the point and it's clear, and like. Yeah, I mean that sucked. The guy's fucked. All right,
moving on.
That guy was fucked. Yep. But Rob's like, that guy was pretty fun. You all right, buddy? Yeah. Okay, great. And we still move on.
Yeah.
But every person will break an incident down differently.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. And that for me, what I was going to get to there was, it's not a bad idea to have, like, if you're going to be reaching out to peers, don't just, if you're okay with it, don't just reach out to one. Reach out to like 2 people that you can, like really confide in, because you're going to get 2 different avenues of assistance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you can't just have a blanket like when everybody comes back to the hobby. Okay, everybody's good. Yeah, okay, good, thanks, and leave. Like,
we have a number for a guy.
Yeah, that is literally for the longest time. You're like, there's a number here. You give that.
I still don't know where that number is.
It's not
that I needed it, but I just don't know where it is.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing, right? Like, there's the 2 big differences in the debriefs, right? There's the CISM style versus the operational, when there's a lot more people need to be included.
Yeah.
So that's very key.
And timelines for the 2 are quite different as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, operational one is good to have right after. Sometimes, of course, being put on call of volunteer departments, you can't right away.
It might be the following week.
Yeah, might do it again. But yeah, the CISM one as well. You may need a check-in or a bumper talk right afterwards, versus for sure within the next kind of 24 to 36 hours.
Yeah.
And then if you're having a formal debrief, which is different, then you've got a specific time frame you need to sit down and have it. And that's all based on science and how our brains and chemicals process everything, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, are we good?
That's all I got. I'm good.
Fire family.
I'm back in.
All right. Yeah, I think we're going to wrap. I don't know if this is it early. I don't even know what time we were at.
50 minutes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're going to wrap. Obviously, seminar week. I don't know if it's obvious. Obvious to us is seminar week. So, seminar this Friday. Starts this Friday.
Yep.
Hopefully, weather cooperates. It doesn't look like it's going to, but that's okay. It's still lots of fire.
We'll still make it happen.
Yeah, we still have to make it happen. It's going to happen. So, but before we talk, I guess part of it is Modus. They're going to be there. So Modus.
Yep, Modus. Claim to fame is their snagger tool. They got a ton of other stuff there. They're actually just wrapping up, or have just wrapped up FDIC. So that's cool. yeah, we've got some videos and stuff for their products. There, some soft entry kit. We got some. I think we have a YouTube video on their hydrant wrench still kicking on our YouTube. Ton of stuff out there. Check them out on their socials. Check them out on ours, and watch for all the info coming out from Seminar, because there's going to be a ton of Motus related content coming down the pipe. If you like what you see, discount code DTFF5. If you are at the seminar, there is a special promo, so watch for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some gift bags, or not gift bags, there's some giveaways that we're going to do.
Yep.
People that are on our social media, like to transfer over to our new site.
Yep.
So, yeah, people watching for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, let's talk about Manscaped.
Manscaped, your balls will thank you. Yep. Good products from Manscaped. Keep everything freshly groomed and trimmed. And you know that directly corresponds into what we do in the fire service as far as keeping yourself clean in the nether regions, because one of the big areas where we get a lot of contaminants and cancer is testicular cancer and stuff and growing. So, yeah, that helps keeping the shrubs bush trimmed.
Fire smart, the old
Yeah, do some fire smarting down south.
fire smart the tree.
Yeah, so the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker 2.0, they got the crop mops, a bunch of screens, a whole bunch of products that they're really good. So check them out, and the code for that is DTFF20.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get you 20% off and free shipping.
Nice.
Cool.
Want to take a crack at Stop the Bleed?
Stop the bleed.
What?
No, I'm straight. Yeah. You got to tourniquet that.
Yeah.
3 methods of bleeding control, wound packing, direct pressure, and tourniquet.
Nice.
Boom.
See?
Oh, mm-hmm.
I will not forget those ones.
Todd, if you want to become an instructor or
Yeah, so check out our YouTube. We got a video on there as well. You can go to stopthebleed.org or .ca to give you some information as well. And a lot of first responders and other individuals can become an instructor. The big thing with that is it is a very basic course for general public, so make it fun and as realistic as possible. That's what we've done. We've got all the wound packing aids that we've created for fairly cheap. Get a bunch of tourniquets, get some training supplies, and yeah, have fun with it.
and you're going to be teaching Stop the Bleed at the seminar, right?
We will, yeah. And we teach and Stop the Bleed. So I got a little condensed version of it because we only got an hour-long session for potentially a large group of people. So we're going to do a couple quick little videos and real fast PowerPoint discussion, then boom, outside, all hands on. We're going to do some scenarios and some tourniquet applications and wound packing and stuff. So.
Yeah. And then on my side of the fence, I'm going to be teaching the active shooter side. So it'll also have a little bit of wound packing, or sorry, tourniquet application,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of triaging. And I was actually the other day, because where I'm doing it inside of a classroom and then a hallway where I can't run the fake blood because you're going to be outside for doing your fake blood. So what I actually went and did, I got some felt, like red felt, like not felt.
Yeah, like the material.
Yeah, and I cut it, cut little pools of blood. So that'll be like guys lying down will throw a pool of red felt by their legs, just for a visual when they come in, they can see at a glance, like big pool of blood, little pool of blood, where it's coming from. Just, I mean, it's not realistic, but it's as realistic as I could probably make it on short notice and without damaging carpets and walls. And
because we'd be staining a lot of shit.
Yeah. So that's my level of realism for this right now. I'm going to throw in maybe a couple of things, like a little smoke alarm going off, and maybe a little bit of mist in the air from the smoke detector, and probably a Bluetooth speaker with some screaming going on. So
Sweet.
Make it realistic, but make it so I don't destroy the room.
Yeah.
Where are we at? Wolf Tree Coffee.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Wolf Tree Coffee. We've been drinking that again tonight. We've got our initial attack blend. It's a medium dark roast. It's going to be for sale at Seminar and then following. They are a roastery out of Oliver, BC. Doing deliveries up and down the valley once a week right now. Working on doing shipping as well. So watch for that. So our listeners, if you want to get involved in that, you will be able to, I believe, shortly. Check them out on Facebook and Instagram, Wolf Tree Coffee Company.
Right. And Tanner Olson.
Tanner Olson Band touring out of Oliver next week.
Mhm.
Turned into all areas.
Yeah, into Oliver, yeah. Yeah, so check them out, all your listening platforms. And they're going to be at the Firepalooza for the concert afterwards.
Was listening to that on my way in.
There we go.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
So yeah,
They
they're
heard
gonna
you back.
be at the concert. It's gonna be awesome. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. When they were here at the 100 year, they're fantastic.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be a really, really fun time.
Last thing's us. This week, like I said, seminar. So check it out on. Well, if you don't have tickets yet, you're not getting tickets now. So, so too bad. But yeah, if you want to check it out, we'll probably have lots of videos going. Ash is going to be rolling around. You don't have a session to teach, but you have lots of stuff to do. But hopefully you'll be able to do some live videos, maybe.
That's kind of what I was planning on doing some lives, getting some of the info out there from the day. The wife's going to be down there also. So during some of the sessions, she'll be taking over some of our social media. Well, taking over, she'll be running our social media as she always does. So she'll get some of that info out there as well. And then, tons of stuff coming afterwards. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. And lastly, you can check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, MySpace.
Yeah.
Anyways, check us out anywhere you find anyone else on this on social media, basically.
Perfect.
Yeah. Any more for any more?
No, sir.
Ash, Fire Family Friend.
Thank you, and have a good night.
Todd.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Rob.
Good night.
Good night, and stay safe, and stay DTFF.
Perfect.
Oh, that's